My mom, Marsha Ridley, pulled out a gun on me during COVID lockdown. Here we go. So I think for a lot of us, if we're the college educated one in the family, or we just know more about computers than our parents, they will volunteer our services and time to people without even asking us. And there was an instance where my mother volunteered for me to falsely complete a disability form for her now deceased sister, Tanya Boo Lancaster, my Aunt Boo, that died from AIDS. My mom wanted me to falsely complete a disability form alleging that my aunt had breast cancer and it was manifesting a disability. I don't edit myself with y'all. I cussed at my mother and said, we're upstairs at her house in Fox Lake in Mitchellville, Maryland. My 8-year-old niece is right there in the hallway. I said, Mom, I'm not doing that shit. I think it's a federal crime. I'm not falsely completing a disability form. My DC accent comes in sometimes. My mom responds to me by saying, while my 8-year-old niece, J. Marie, is in the hallway, I hate you. I hate you. You fucking bitch. All the shit I do for you. Not the first day at the rodeo. My mom's been calling me a bitch since I was 4 years old. I turn around to just go ahead and leave and walk down the steps. My mom goes off to get something. It's my 8-year-old niece is right there in the hall. My mother went and got her gun. My mother is a licensed registered gun owner in the state of Maryland. My mother did not point her gun at me, but she's waving it around, bop, bop, bopping like a Bloods and Crip movie or something she saw in a rap video. You bitch, get the fuck out my house. You bitch, get the fuck out of my house. And then she sits the gun down unsecured in front of my 8-year-old niece. I just turn around and leave. It's torrential rain outside. I did not want to drive home back to DC, but I just left. And as I'm leaving, I say, I'm calling the police. As I'm driving in the rain, my stepsister, Aurelia Ridley, calls me, my 8-year-old niece's mother, and says, please don't call the police. I don't want J. Marie to be questioned by the police. I am an auntie. I love my niece, whether she's 8 years old or 100 years old. I don't ever want her to have to interact with the police, so I do not call the police immediately. But because of my education background and whatever it is I do for work, I am a mandated reporter under the law. So I do contact my mother's employer, the DC Department of General Services, which is the property manager for DC Public Schools. And my mom works around children at Douglas Daycare. And the irony, I also contact the DC Child and Family Services Agency, the same agency that didn't do shit when my mother fractured my jaw when I was 8 years old. Both agencies do nothing. They don't investigate. They don't question my 8-year-old niece, which you all still can do to this day because my niece does not lie. And nothing happens with DC government. Whenever their employees engage in any misconduct, criminal, DC government, DC police department does nothing. They had an employee, big fat rascal, that shot a 90-pound unarmed 13-year-old, and they didn't even immediately arrest him. He murdered a 13-year-old, and they didn't even arrest him. That's the nature of DC government. But from that incident where my mom pulling the gun out on me, I just said I had enough. The universe, intuition, God sent me a message, do no contact with your family. I went no contact completely with my mother, family, started to travel the world. I went to live in Panama and Lisbon first. And then in August 2022, my stepfather died. And it's my mother. I felt bad for her. I felt sorry for her. And even though I heard God saying, don't pick up that phone, I picked up the phone and reestablished contact with my mother and family and went over to her house. Ever since I made that reestablished contact with my family, again, my life has been a whirlwind of chaos over the last 2.5 years, from being assaulted by family members to having my mother using her labor union connections and ties to Aisha Brayboy and Angela Also Brooks to misuse and abuse the Maryland court system against me. I have only given you guys a teaspoon of the fucking hell that I have been through over the last 2.5 years. I want you all to take in my sharing this story, especially during Suicide Prevention Month, is that when God tells you to stay away from family blood, a person you think is the love of your life, your best friend, listen. Because part of my healing right now is not only healing from the decades of trauma and abuse that I've been through with my family, I am healing from beating myself up for reestablishing that contact with my family and not listening to God's intuition and direction, and God being my spiritual North Star. I did not listen, and I know I need to forgive myself, but forgiveness even for yourself and healing is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and I am working through that as well. So please, when you get that intuition to disconnect, to terminate relationships with people, listen.